Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Horn Frog Blitz podcast. Podcast, I believe, number 9 for the season, 9 or 10. I'm Jeremy Clark, joined always by my good friend Jeremiah Glenn. Jeremiah, how's things going for you?
Pretty good. It's been seems like a really long week since our last show, but everything's going all right, I guess.
Yeah, tough week last week for the Frogs. Got their first L of the season. Hopefully the only L of the season on the road at Oklahoma State. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. We're going to talk about the ever so popular college football playoff rankings that were released last night. Frogs come in an unexpected place. Figured they'd drop, but not so far. We're going to go around the Big 12 some, recap last week's action, predict some of the stuff that's going on this week. I think you got a game on me, picking West Virginia to beat Texas Tech last week, so you got one on me. And then, of course, we're going to talk some Big 12, not Big 12, but some big recruiting this week. A couple names to watch, some names that will be in town this weekend for the Kansas game, and possibly commitment alerts. So, further ado, let's break into this, man. We went up to Stillwater. We saw what happened. Everyone that wasn't there obviously saw it on TV. Frogs lose 49-29. It wasn't a good day for the defense. It wasn't a good day for the offense. Somehow or another, though, the Frogs are in that thing late in the game. If you get a few breaks here or there, this could have been a different story. But ultimately, I've seen a lot of people post this and say it, and I kind of agree with it. They were kind of living on borrowed time. There's only so much you can do with that many injuries, and everyone's going to sit here and say, oh, those knuckleheads at Horned Frog Blitz are making excuses. And you probably know this, but you talked about it, and someone made a great point on the board referencing if Baylor lost the same equivalent of players, how would they be? Or, another program. Some big losses, but it's crazy. They lose for the first time in 16 games. Oklahoma State's better than I gave them credit for. Of course, when you're playing in Stillwater, you're gonna do some great things, and on to Kansas. I mean, that's a mentality you have to have.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State was better than I thought they were too, and that Boone Pickett Stadium just continues to be kind of a house of horrors for Trevon Boykin. If you would have told me before the game that Boykin was going to throw for 445 yards and run for nearly 80, I would have thought TCU rolled by 3 touchdowns. But that wasn't the case. The 4 interceptions set Oklahoma State up in good position. They actually had the pick 6 late. Getting beat deep multiple times, the defense getting beat deep, and then getting stuffed on a 4th and 1 from the Oklahoma State 1-yard line, and dadgummit if it wasn't a short side option.
Your favorite
my
play.
arch nemesis, but
the ghost of Mike Schultz.
I'm telling you, I thought Mike Schultz snuck into the press box and stole Cumbie's headset or something. I don't know. I hate that play, and I always have. So I know TCU scored a lot of points on it here recently.
It is one of those plays though where you're leaving it in the hands of your best player, sure. And maybe he gets in there. You got to have better blocking, and it's tough when you're running side to side against a fast defense like Oklahoma State. Because I'll say this: Oklahoma State had better athletes than I gave them credit for. I like Trey Flowers, Chad Whitener, who coincidentally enough had a great game, and that kid, I can't remember what. I think he came out the same year George Baltimore came out of Mansfield, and I remember Chad all the time would send me messages and everything else telling me how much he loved TCU. That kid would have died for a TCU offer 2 or 3 years ago, and of course he goes out to Cal and plays there for I think it last about a year there, and then transfers to Oklahoma State. But he had a really good game, and I think for the most part the offensive line did a good job on Emmanuel Ogbah. I don't remember his name being called too much. Of course he had a couple quarterback hurries on Trevon, but the offense still racked up 663 yards, and they had over 200 yards rushing. And like you said, if you would have told me TCU's going to go up there and get 663 yards of offense, I would have told you they would have won. But the caveat is the 4 interceptions. You can't win a football game against a quality opponent. And I say quality, but we're still talking about a team that is now number 8 in the playoff rankings. They're undefeated. They're 9-0, and it's you can't really say much more about it. I mean, it's just living on borrowed time. That's all you can say.
I don't mean to backtrack too much, but back to that, I had one more thought on that play with Boykin on the 1-yard line. That, to me, was a microcosm of this season. Not that they were stuffed at the 1, but the reason why they were stuffed at the 1. And I'm not singling out any single player. But if you look on that play, and I watched it 10 times, that's Jalen Austin out there on the edge trying to block, and he doesn't get the block. That's a freshman that, honestly, as good as I think he's going to be, he really shouldn't be on the field this year, and he's been pressed into duty. And he's got a ways to go on the physical side. I think he's got a great frame. I think he's going to be a great receiver. You see how we talked about this earlier in the season. You watch how Josh Doxson uses his body. He's a veteran. He uses that big body as to block, shield himself, or shield the defensive backs, and he uses it also in blocking. Jalen Austin's got that ability. He's just got to learn how to execute at that level. And unfortunately, he missed the block on that edge, and that's what got Trevon nailed right there on the corner.
You made a great point, because not only is Josh a great blocker, but Juwan Story was probably as good a blocker as he was a receiver. You've seen a decline in the run game running on the perimeter because they don't have a greatest blocking as they used to.
Tassolina
was a great blocker from the slot. Now you got guys like Cavante Turpin and Des White, and with all due respect to them,
they're not big enough to block.
They're not really big enough to block a linebacker or block a safety that's playing downhill. And like you mentioned, Jalen Austin's a true freshman, so he's gonna take his lumps. He's got to obviously get better. He's a good sized kid, and he'll get better, with experience and with time.
I agree.
But that's a big, and Emmanuel Porter's the same way. Emmanuel was a great outside perimeter blocker, and I think as much as you've lost production at receiver for catches they can make, I think you're taking a bigger hit from the blocks they can make. I mean, that's an excellent point, Jeremiah, talking about the blocks that would have happened, that could have sprung some big plays, and it'll be nice to get some guys back like Slanina and Porter, and Slanina is probably going to be back for Oklahoma from what Patterson said on Wednesday, and I want to say Emmanuel Porter is going to be back the same time, if not starting this week. The big news was Josh obviously practiced on Wednesday. He wasn't wearing shoulder pads or anything like that, but it was good to see that he was at least out there running around. But the turning point in this game happened before the first kickoff. The thing I told you in the press box, when was the last time we've ever seen TCU win a coin toss and not defer to the second half?
I can't even remember. And we're like, oh boy, is that your first sign that maybe Patterson's looking at this game a little bit differently?
Yeah. Then your second sign, your first play of the game, you get a block and the back penalty on you on the kickoff. And
that whole first series, they looked completely out of sync. There's a play, and then again, I hate pointing out individuals because I want you to understand I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it's things that you notice. This is one of my pet peeves, and obviously I'm not an offensive coordinator, but when TCU runs Aaron Green or whoever it is in the backfield out, and they've got 5 receivers now, and you've got your running back running a route, I prefer to see that running back personally not be majorly involved in that route if you've got 4 other available receivers.
Yeah.
Then here comes the issue with being short-handed at receiver. But on that play, on that first drive, Boykin was going to Doxson, but it looked like Aaron Green ran right and jumped right in his way up for the ball as well. And basically, you had 2 receivers in the same spot. Should have never happened.
Which brought 3 Oklahoma State defenders.
So you have 3 Oklahoma State defenders there. That ball was not going to be completed. And they just looked out of whack, like right off the bat. And, I mean, I'll give Oklahoma State fans a little bit of that credit. I mean, they came out. They were fired up. It was a loud crowd. They kind of sensed that, after that first drive that they had a chance, and for TCU to not do anything right away, I mean it's one drive.
The first 2 drives actually, because the defense played great on Oklahoma State's first drive. They forced a 3 and out, so you're thinking, okay, well, TCU didn't score, but they look good on defense, so they're getting the ball back. They're going to go down and score. It's an interception. Trevon throws a pass that goes right to Jordan Burton. It was a bad pass. I love Trey to death. Great player. He's done so much more for the program than probably anyone. And
I think Oklahoma State was doing a lot of things different.
They watched a ton of film.
You could tell they were very well prepared for that game. They were basically making reads for Trevon a couple of times, and they were dropping that play for Burton. They dropped him back into the flat there. I don't think that's normally a linebacker jumping that route there.
Even on the third possession when TCU finally scored, Whitener is going from a dead sprint from his linebacker position, not even turning around, but he's sprinting 40 yards downfield just to eliminate the deep middle. And he, of course, kills Kobe as he's about to catch it. But, that's stuff that they do in the NFL where they just turn those linebackers around and tell them just sprint downfield, don't even turn around, just sprint and get into the zone. And that's kind of what they did because TCU's been so successful throwing those seam routes and throwing over the middle, especially deep. But
I know it doesn't seem like it. Watching that game, it's hard to imagine me saying what I'm about to say. But early on, like you just said, I thought TCU's defense was actually playing the run well. I thought they were getting pressure on Randolph? Oh, my gosh. Rudolph, sorry. Yeah. Just went blank for a second. And I thought they were containing Walsh. I think they were doing a really good job. The problem was they were leaving their corners on an island and they were getting beat. That one play, there was a double move, and then another one he ran just right by him.
Oklahoma State's first scoring, their second possession, they had Rudolph overthrew Austin Hayes. He split Kindred and Ray Izahaku right down. I mean, it wasn't even close. If it's a good pass, Austin Hayes, for crying out loud, is running into the end zone with 5 or 6 yard separation. But what do they do the very next play? They go deep to James Washington because everyone and their dog knows that TCU is susceptible to giving up big plays. They're not healthy on defense right now. Gary said that Nick Orr's not healthy, and you don't want to make excuses, but Nick Orr has struggled more than just Oklahoma State this year.
And that's what makes you believe that there is something going on injury-wise there.
Nick Orr, for one, I like Nick. Nick is, in my opinion, he's sophomore. By the time he's senior, I think he could be an all-conference safety.
Thank you.
Not corner, a safety.
And that's what you got here.
But he has been forced. Right. He has been forced to play corner because no one else is stepping up at that position. And I understand the arguments from people. Where's Deshaun Raymond? He's a 4-star. Guys, listen. The reason why you're not hearing about Deshaun Raymond or some other kids that are younger kids, and I'm not downgrading those guys because they're out there playing, but if you're not hearing it, and it could be a freshman or a senior, if you're not hearing about them, there's a reason. There's a reason you're not hearing about them. And it's easy enough to say, well, everyone else is out there struggling. Why not give them a chance? Give them a chance like you did some younger players. I'm not going to name a name, but we saw against West Virginia a younger corner that got out there because he had done well in practice and he got yanked after the first series.
Yeah.
But you've got to understand, if they're not practicing well in practice, they're not going to just send them out there in a game just because they want to see what they could do in a game. It's not going to happen like that.
Help me out with something, JC. I got a quick question. I understand who am I to ever question Gary Patterson? He runs a tight ship on defense, and I understand he's playing with 2 arms tied behind his back this year. I get that. But one of my questions is the physicality or lack thereof from the cornerbacks at the line of scrimmage. I understand James Washington's he's a blazer. The guy can fly.
Love that kid.
But what I didn't like, even on the play where he just kind of jogged off the line of scrimmage and caught Nick Orr looking inside, and then he just took off.
The second touchdown.
Well, Nick Orr never got a hand on him. He just ran right by him. And I would like to see a little more physicality at the line. I see Oklahoma State's corners doing it to TCU's receivers, just jamming the hell out of them at the line of scrimmage. And I don't see TCU's corners even touching the receiver they're covering.
Well, Nick was playing off on that particular play.
On that particular play, yes.
It looked like they were that's the thing. TCU will play close, but they will never jam. They are a turn and run cornerback unit. And I don't know if that's because they're coached that way or that's just because that's the way they're playing, but they are a turn and run. And I kind of never understood that. And I'm not questioning Coach Patterson either because he's obviously had more success with that defense, and anyone can. You're not going to argue with the success that they've had.
Correct.
But I agree with you. I'm kind of surprised that there isn't more of a jam at the line of scrimmage. The corners just kind of turn and run. The play you're talking about, Nick got kind of caught up looking in the backfield. It was a quick screen, fake screen. And James just kind of you know who he reminded me of on that play? Kavontae Turpin, because he just kind of walked like he was going to come block and be lazy about it, and then as soon as they got the pump fake, he's running by Nick. And I paused it on TV because we saw it in the press box obviously, but when I got home and watched it on TV, he was completely just stuck in the mud as James was already getting ready to run by him. He was completely fooled on that. And then the other play that they had in the third quarter, it was just one of those deals where James Washington made a good play. Nick had pretty decent coverage, but just didn't play the ball well. And, of course, the Marcel Aitman touchdown, you have a corner fall down, and God bless Derek Kindred. I don't know what he was thinking on that play, but he was watching something else.
Yeah.
Aitman's just running by with no one around. We've seen it all year. We've seen that they can get beat vertically, but I think it was the worst display that I've seen from them giving up the deep ball.
It was, and I just felt like they're – it's funny. I didn't notice this being there, and I didn't notice this watching the replay, but I had a couple people that I work with and then some other people that I've talked to that said it looked like TCU didn't have any energy in that game. They said it looked like Oklahoma State was way more energetic and way more into the game. I don't know that I saw that.
No, those guys were playing hard all the way.
And that's what I say. And TCU's not, and but this comes down to what we've talked about. We've heard other people talk about on the board this year. Is TCU's group this year isn't really excitable. Like even after a big play, they just kind of jog off the field. There's no flying around and screaming, and maybe that's because they're so focused on just getting their assignment in and making a play. But that I don't want to say maybe that edge. They're maybe missing that edge this year. But I don't think it has anything to do with those guys not playing hard or being prepared, because they came prepared, and honestly, with all the mistakes they made, they were still in it at the end.
Yeah.
So,
and to finish up, there is a silver lining to this game. Obviously, you have a point in the game where it's when Trevon didn't score on that touchdown, it's 42-23 at that point, when they didn't score from the one. So they score there, they make it 42-30. Then they get the ball back, they drive right down the field again on Oklahoma State. It could be a 42-37 game in no time.
Right.
That interception late by Whitener widened the gap, obviously. And anyone that watched that game, you can't really sit there and say Oklahoma State dominated that game from start to finish, because I'm sitting here looking at everything. TCU had over 200 more total yards. The turnovers obviously hurt TCU. But the good news is they've got Kansas coming up. The bad news is they plunged big time in the college football playoff rankings. And we'd like to apologize to our listeners right now, because there could be some bad language coming up in the next.
If you have any young folks with you in the car or at home, you might want to grab a pair of earmuffs for them.
Yeah, because this is bad. But I knew TCU was going to take a drop. Okay, everyone knew that they were going to drop. How in the hell did they fall to 15? How in the hell did they finish behind Oklahoma, Michigan State, Michigan? Sorry, I'm
pounding the table.
Pounding the table here. Going to hurt my fist. Iowa. I'll tell you right now, that committee, they hate the Big 12.
There's no doubt.
They do not like the Big 12.
They hate the style of play in the Big 12.
Exactly, because you got knuckleheads that, not knuckleheads, but old-timers like Barry Alvarez and Tom Osborne that are part of this old school, let's, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, let's run the option at them, let's get, 350-pound linemen to block for our running backs. They don't like the style of offense. They don't like defenses playing and giving up, 20 to 30 points a game. There's no doubt that Tom Osborne and Barry Alvarez stood in front of the folks on the committee and said Iowa is playing great football right now, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. Because I'm going to tell you, if I'm a pissed off fan right now, I don't think you can find a more pissed off fan than the ones down in Waco right now. Because how in the hell does Baylor go up to Kansas State with a true freshman quarterback, win that game 31-24? It was more. Kansas State started to come back late in that game. Okay, they made it look closer, but Baylor was still impressive in their win. Iowa, on the other hand, goes to the. I mean, if you can go into Bloomington, Indiana, and come out with a win, oh my gosh, you're one hell of a program. No, but Iowa goes into Indiana, beats them, but somehow the committee felt that Iowa's win over Indiana was more impressive than Baylor's win over Kansas State, which solidifies my opinion. The committee hates the Big 12. They do not. They are hoping, among all hope, that Oklahoma beats Baylor this week. And there is no doubt in my mind those suckers are rooting for the Sooners to beat Baylor. Then they're going to turn around and hope Baylor beats Oklahoma State so they can get rid of the no loss situation.
I feel like and this is, you're going to have everybody out there that's going to be skeptical of what we're saying right now. But all you have to do is take off your glasses of any team you're cheering for right now. I don't care if it's TCU, Texas, who it is. Take off your blinders from your school. Look at what they're doing. They are positioning schools where they want them to be positioned. With Oklahoma State being so low on the initial ranking, even if TCU would have won, they just beat a 14th ranked team.
Yeah.
So now Oklahoma State beats TCU. Well, they only beat the 8th ranked team, so they move up to number 8. Iowa jumps them. That's ridiculous. To me right now, what the committee's trying to do is set it up to where whoever wins that Stanford-Notre Dame game is in.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. And I think it's going to be, if everything goes...
Clemson's not going to lose.
I don't think they will either.
Clemson's not going to lose.
And I think I could see Ohio State taking a loss to either Michigan or whoever in the...
Well, that's the funny thing. If Michigan State goes and beats Ohio State... And then they turn around, and Iowa's not going to – Iowa has nobody on their schedule.
So then Michigan State beats them.
Beats Iowa, which is going to look like 2 good wins.
Then you're telling me a team that lost to freaking Nebraska this year is going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous.
So I agree with you. They're going to want those marquee teams in. If there's a team out of the Big 12 right now that I think – I think Baylor would have a chance. Because right now, I think if Baylor played Iowa – and I hope this gets back to a Hawkeye fan, Baylor would wipe the Hawkeyes all over the field by about 40 points.
I think Iowa would be able to run the ball on Baylor, obviously, but I don't think there's any way in hell that they could keep up with Baylor's offense.
No, there's no way.
It would be a 58 to, and then people say there's no way that Baylor would score that on a Big Ten team. Give me a break. There's no way Iowa's defense could keep up with that offense of Baylor. And I think Baylor would beat them by 4 touchdowns.
The proof is in the pudding with Ohio State because Ohio State runs a fast-paced offense like all the teams in the Big 12 do.
And nobody in the Big Ten can keep up.
No one in the Big Ten. That's exactly right.
They're having issues at quarterback this year. That's their problem.
But if you're out of the Big 12, Oklahoma State, you've got to beat Oklahoma, or you've got to beat Baylor, and you've got to beat Oklahoma. Poor Baylor. The bad thing for them is what happens if they beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to drop, and then what happens if they beat Oklahoma State? They're going to drop. What happens if Oklahoma beats TCU? TCU's going to drop, so they're not going to have a marquee win. You know what I'm saying?
And this is another issue. I've always had this issue with that. I think the team, you should get credit for the win that you have when you play that team for what they're ranked then, not at the end of the season. When TCU beat Oklahoma last year, 37-33, Oklahoma was number 3 and being talked about as a national championship contender. Now, people will go on to say, oh, they were a fraud last year. Maybe so, but maybe the TCU win against them knocked them off their track. That's my point is...
By the time late in the year, no one was talking about TCU's win over Oklahoma.
No, because everybody thought that was just...
Because Oklahoma had a bad season and they fell off the face of the earth, and no one was giving them credit for having a good win.
I remember even last year people kept talking about the lack of big wins for TCU, but if you look at the wins TCU had last year, going down the stretch, every team they played, when they beat Oklahoma State 42-9, Oklahoma State was like number 12 or number 14 then.
Yeah.
But they didn't get credit for that,
No.
And so there's just a lot of things that need to change. And unfortunately, we have now as a college football society put the outcome of these games in the hands of a freaking cartel sitting in a room somewhere making decisions based on their rooting interest or their interest. And it's sickening to me because you've got kids busting their tails for a chance at this, and you're telling TCU and any other Big 12 teams you don't belong.
Yeah.
TCU's still in the Mountain West. I heard somebody say that today. That's what it feels like. It feels like a second-rate conference just because Texas and OU have been down the last couple of years. And it's not right to teams like Baylor and Oklahoma State and TCU that have done it for a while now.
No, I have a apology to make because I made a post on the board saying TCU would have a chance. After last night, there is no way. There is no way they're going to get in. The fact that Notre Dame's going to be in there, they're hoping for a Notre Dame Stanford win to see whoever wins that game, they're going to get in. Clemson's not going to lose. North Carolina's their only chance of losing because they're playing pretty good football. Alabama somehow or another still gets all the credit in the world, even though they lost at home. By the way, giving up 40-something points to an Ole Miss team that now has three losses. And then you got Ohio State. Ohio State, I mean, they haven't lost anyone. They're undefeated. They haven't really shown that they were as good as last year. They haven't been blowing out teams. They've obviously got some tough games ahead with Michigan State and Michigan. But the thing I was disappointed about the most is Oklahoma being ahead of TCU. They have identical 8-1 records. OU's loss is to a 4-win Texas team that coincidentally TCU beat by 43 points at home.
Let that sink in for a second.
Both teams 8-1. OU's loss is to a 4-win Texas team. TCU's loss is to a 9-0 Oklahoma State team in Stillwater. Okay? Michigan State, still ranked ahead of TCU, lost on the road to a 4-win Nebraska team. Now, I don't give a care what people are going to say about the way that game finished. Michigan State got a lot of help in that Michigan game, too.
There's a miracle there. They should have 2 losses.
Okay? So you're going to tell me that Michigan State's loss was better than TCU's? They lost to a 4-win team, whereas TCU lost to a 9-win team that's undefeated. And don't even get me started on Michigan. Michigan had to have one hell of a goal line stand to beat Minnesota. They should have lost to Minnesota. If Minnesota gets that touchdown, Michigan has 3 losses. Michigan has played better, but I'm telling you right now, the committee does not like the Big 12. And all I can do and tell everyone else that is a Big 12 fan, when you go down to sleep tonight, kneel down beside your bed and pray for total chaos. Pray for Alabama to lose. Pray for Notre Dame to lose. Pray for total chaos that somehow or another the committee is going to have the hardest job they've ever had to do, because right now they're just trying to set themselves up not to look bad in the end, because they want their 4 marquee teams in, the ones that are going to pad the pockets and bring money into the playoffs.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so aggravated. We touched on it last week about the committees changing their criteria to fit their narrative for that particular week, and I feel like they did it again. They're making up stats.
The body clocks. A freaking body clock?
That was the one that blew me away. So you're telling me you're giving Stanford a little bit of a break because of their travel. Listen, every team in this freaking country travels. And just because you lose because you're tired is not a freaking excuse. I'm sorry, it's not an excuse, period. And if you want to really get deeper into the freaking... I'm losing it.
He's about to lose it.
I'm losing it. The Washington State-Stanford game, to me, still... That game right there proved to me that it is the fix is in to get particular teams in the playoffs. Washington State had that game. It was clear on a fumble by McCaffrey out of bounds that Washington State was taking over the ball. They would have won the game. Clear and they overturned it. They let McCaffrey keep the ball. I'm sorry. That was so obvious what was going on right there. The Pac-12 was protecting their playoff shot team, and now look at what we have. Because that changes everything. That changes everything. If Stanford's not in the conversation because they've got 2 losses, the Pac-12 doesn't have a team. Man, I'm sorry, dude. I'm just
keep going. I want to hear more of your
my outlandish theories. But is it crazy though? I mean, does it not just make sense to you? And it's not. I'm not saying this on behalf of TCU. I'm saying this on behalf of the Big 12. They are getting jobbed on this whole deal. Period. And it's really sad in this day and age. And I've heard people say if it was Texas or Oklahoma that were 8-0, yeah, and I even heard Corby on the ticket talking about that today. If it was Texas or Oklahoma, then yeah, they would be up there. They have the pedigree. Give me a freaking break. What does it matter what your pedigree is? It matters how good you are this year. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to. But we all know now that's not what it's about.
I'm calling it now. Iowa will have a loss. They're going to lose to Nebraska on the road. And let this sink in for a second. Iowa has 0 wins, unless Northwestern is. I haven't looked at it lately. That's their best win of the year. But I'm telling you right now, if you put Iowa and Baylor on the same field, that game would be over within the second quarter. This isn't Michigan State, folks. This is Iowa. They're a good football team, but they are not the number 5 team in the country. Just like some people were saying TCU wasn't the number 8 or number 2, whatever it was, whatever ranking you want to go by. Probably right, but I'd like to see another team that has as many injuries as TCU has to significant players. But anyhow,
we can belabor this for another hour.
Yeah. Let's move on to something productive and
I got to bring my blood pressure back down a little bit.
Speaking of production, let's talk about the least productive team in college football right now. The Kansas Jayhawks are coming to town, but don't look past the Jayhawks because we were there last year in Lawrence when it was 20 degrees, and that one game right there might have been the reason TCU was not in the Final Four because they had to escape Lawrence with the close win last year.
TCU caught them on a cold night in Kansas on a senior night with a senior-heavy team that was playing out of their minds on defense and a TCU team that may have realized they were in a game maybe a quarter too late,
Yeah.
But you can't make excuses. The fact is TCU won that game on the road, but I for one will not look past Kansas, and for this reason. Since TCU's been in the Big 12, they've played this team 3 times. Not once has TCU blown them out. Not once. The games were way closer than they should have been. So I'm not saying that TCU won't blow them out this time. I'm just saying I'm not looking past Kansas, and the Frogs shouldn't either.
Well, the thing that's different about this Kansas team than the other teams is it's extremely youthful.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about TCU playing 30 freshmen and redshirt freshmen. Our buddy over at 247 that covers Kansas told me yesterday that Kansas has played 39 first-time starters this season, whether that's a true freshman or redshirt freshman. And you're talking about an offense that is playing a true freshman at quarterback, has 3 true freshmen on the offensive line, has
that's scary.
Inexperience at receiver. The running backs are pretty good. I like Kinnear. I thought he was great at Little Elm when he was coming out of there a couple years ago. But defense, there's holes all over the field. They give up a ton of points to everyone. They gave up 59 to Texas last week, for crying out loud. They're very young. Kansas, for David Beatty, it may be a 3 to 4 year rebuilding process where they even get bowl eligible. Obviously, he's playing a lot of his players right now, but if there was a team that TCU needs to play right after a loss to Oklahoma State, it's probably Kansas. But it's going to be senior day. It's weird. It's going to be senior day, but it's not their last. But I found out the reason why they're calling it senior day is because obviously Baylor's on the day after Thanksgiving. It's tough for families to get down, and they want to make it for this weekend, and so everyone has a chance to come see their kids play.
Might boost the old attendance numbers for the Kansas game too.
Yeah, and maybe they just wanted to make sure they won on their last as their quote unquote senior game. But no, obviously we don't know if Josh is going to play. He practiced, but we saw him on Wednesday after practice. He wasn't wearing shoulder pads or anything. So you're going to have young guys having to step up. Jalen Austin's probably going to get the start there. It was crazy when we were watching Oklahoma State. They had 4 true freshman receivers playing. If you'd have told me heading into the season that 4 true freshman receivers would be playing, I would have said, you're crazy. Maybe 2. 1 or maybe 2 tops. Right. But those guys have had to come in, and that makes Trevon's season even more remarkable considering he hasn't had a healthy receiving core to throw to.
Because he's still producing, no matter who's out there at receiver.
And that's what Coach P had mentioned on Tuesday is that even though Josh wasn't in the game, Trevon still threw for 445 yards. You take away Josh's production, he's throwing 380 passing yards, and he completed 35 passes, and Josh caught 6 of them, so he's completing 29 passes to different receivers. So it's not like Boykin's just focusing on Josh the whole game. He's got other guys that he's felt comfortable with, that he's building a good pass-catch relationship with. But again, Kansas is the remedy for all losses. I think TCU's going to come out, look good on offense. We're going to see them improve on defense. They do have a couple deep threats. Trey Parmalee's a deep threat for them. Obviously, if everyone else has been testing,
they're going to take a shot.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, you have to. The good news is they don't have that tight end that killed TCU last year on the roster anymore, because I can't remember that kid's name, but I remember him last year. He was just all over the secondary for the Frogs. But it's one of those games where you hope to see your starters out by the third quarter, and you want to see them bounce back. Maybe Trey kind of gets some confidence back. I know he took the loss pretty hard last week, and what better way to go out there and shred Kansas's defense a little bit, throw some touchdown passes, get the younger guys' confidence built up, because you know what? You only have 4 more games with Boykin. You only have 4 more games with Josh. Enjoy them while you can. As Coach P's been saying for the last several weeks, enjoy these guys while you got them. But
yeah, I mean, you really wanted to see that fairy tale ending for Doc and Trevon and Aaron, all those guys that worked so hard and poured so much into this program. But they still have a lot to play for. Yes, I agree with you. They have no chance to make the playoffs now just because of the way the committee is doing things.
Yeah,
but
you can't trust them.
You still have a chance if you run the table to end up in a Sugar Bowl or a Fiesta Bowl against a top-level opponent. And TCU's got to think like that. I understand the one game at a time mentality, but you have to have that goal to play for. Now, you're not in the playoffs, but okay, what's next? A New Year's Six Bowl.
You still have a chance to win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
And that's still a great recruiting tool if you can sell to recruits. Hey, we've won the Big 12 2 years in a row. But yeah, Coach Patterson even said on Wednesday that we lost one game and everyone's acting like the world's ending. I mean, we're 8-1, and TCU is 8. Think about this: they are 8-1 with their only loss to an undefeated team, with everything that they've gone through, the injuries,
it's incredible,
just everything.
I got so much respect for the guys on this team that have fought through injuries, and just inexperience to be where they are right now is incredible. And it's a testament to the coaching staff as well.
Well, let's move past Kansas. Let's review last week in the Big 12, because, like I said, you caught up a game with me on Texas Tech.
What am I, 3 behind now? It's gonna take
I think two or three.
It's going to take a miracle to
kind of like
it.
the college football playoff. You can pray for anarchy, just chaos and everything else that can happen for the next few weeks to try to catch me. But some good games starting on last Thursday. I think everyone was tuned into the Baylor-Kansas State game. And I got to tell you, I told you, you said you agreed too, because we kind of thought the same thing. As long as you could throw the deep ball, you're gonna be successful in the Baylor offense.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish.
No, I'm just saying that the receivers are very talented. The run game's good. They didn't run the ball as well as you had hoped against Kansas State, but overall, for Jarrett Stidham's first start, he throws for over 400. He threw some good deep balls. He had a couple passes over the middle that were
just
throws.
NFL caliber throws.
I mean, they were throws. And the thing I liked, I mean, he looked pretty poised. He did not look like a true freshman.
He never looked rattled to me.
Not at all. And I thought the old Coach Snyder would kind of throw some different looks at him, but they kind of kept it pretty simple. But the guy that they were picking on was the true freshman that gave up the deep pass to Doxson a few weeks ago.
Right.
When TCU beat Kansas State on the road, so they found him in the secondary and they started attacking him pretty quick, and it was over, and then Kansas State made a late run at it. I'll say this about Kansas State: I like Joe Huebner as a running quarterback, but I think when they ask him to throw is when Kansas State starts struggling. Because if there's I don't know how the heck they do it, but Kansas State can be one-dimensional and play in ball games. And same thing we said
and then
when
all of a
TCU
sudden they
played
inexplicably
them.
change.
Yeah,
start throwing the ball.
Yeah, they're beating TCU 35-18 or 35-17 at halftime. They come out throwing the football in the third quarter, and you and I look at each other like,
that's playing right into TCU's
what are they doing?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing they started doing with Baylor. They abandoned the run game a little bit. Huebner was grinding yards out, and then they started to try to throw the football with them. But I think if they would have just kind of maintained the run game early on, that game could have been a lot tighter toward the end. But Kansas State's playing for the tie, the last possession of the game, and again they go out and try to do a trick play. So Cody Cook throws an interception, and next thing you know, Baylor's walking away with the win. But overall, I was impressed with Baylor's ability to go up there, get a win in a hostile environment. But I'll say this, on TV, it did not look anything like it did against TCU.
There was a lot of empty seats.
And it was cold. It was raining.
Right.
Of course, you're not going to have people go out into the stands for that kind of weather, but it wasn't as intense as
I think
TCU's game.
a lot of the piss and vinegar has been taken out of that Kansas State fan base after just getting whipped up on in the rest of this Big 12 this year. And, I think it's the reality set in that they're going to be doing well to make a bowl game this year.
Yeah.
So, it's tough, and it's hard to bring that same kind of excitement as they did earlier in the year against TCU. But, yeah, it was a different environment. I will say this. It got a little close at the end, and there was some real hairy moments, I guess, for Baylor. But I was impressed with Stidham overall. That's his first college start. And he's going to play some tougher teams, obviously, down the stretch. But, man, there's no denying that kid's talent. He's incredibly talented. I will reserve judgment on how great he is this early in his career until he plays at OU.
Let him finish the
let's
schedule.
see what he does in front of 80,000 and it actually has a team that has a pulse right now still in the hunt.
The good news is they get Oklahoma at home, though. So
okay, I had that one backwards.
Yeah.
But they do play in Stillwater.
They do play in Stillwater, and they do got to come up to Fort Worth. If you're taking the test for the first time, he got 100.
Sure, absolutely.
West Virginia beat Texas Tech. That's a game that I thought the Red Raiders were going to go up to Morgantown and win because I like the Red Raiders on offense. I love Patrick Mahomes. But West Virginia fools me, and they come out with the win.
For whatever reason, West Virginia is always a pretty tough place to play, and especially later in the season, I think it's a little tougher to play. West Virginia, they've really kind of been on a downward spiral, and I feel like they felt as a team like they had to get that win.
Yeah.
I think the whispers are getting a little bit louder about Holgerson's job up there, and is he the man for the job? And that's a tough place because West Virginia, you're not going to be able to recruit Texas kids, even though you're in the Big 12. It's just too far away.
Yeah.
So they've really turned their focus. I've been reading some stuff with West Virginia on. They are recruiting the heck out of the East Coast. They're recruiting kids that are in Big Ten country and say, hey, do you want to play in a fun style offense in a fun conference? Come play in the Big 12. And they're recruiting Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia really hard. That's great, but it's a different caliber of athlete. And West Virginia's got to be careful that they don't they don't fall into the same thing that Nebraska fell into whenever they left the Big 12 and they quit recruiting Texas.
Exactly.
That killed them. So I knew West Virginia felt like they had to win that game, but I wasn't really certain because Skylar Howard's been so hit or miss.
Yeah.
But they pull out the win, so it was a good win for West Virginia.
They ran the ball well. Wendell Smallwood had 163 yards on the ground.
And they had to have been watching film. Everybody runs the ball in Tech, and
yeah.
so they knew that. And
they had two 100-yard rushers that game
go.
too. So obviously they went against Texas Tech's weakness on defense. Texas Tech moves to 5-5 now on the year, and they're looking for another win to get bowl eligible. Oklahoma beats Iowa State 52-16. They played them. Oklahoma's playing really good football right now, and if I'm being honest, I think they're probably playing the best football in the Big 12. They're playing good on offense, playing good on defense. Iowa State, obviously coming off a big win over Texas. I thought they would put up more of a fight. I didn't think they would give up 52 to Oklahoma, but it just proves again that Oklahoma is playing better on offense.
Oklahoma wore them down in the second half. Iowa State was actually putting up a little bit of a fight early on. I mean, not much, but they're physical. And that's what we talked about last week is Iowa State's what they're lagging for in talent, they make up for in physicality, and they'll hit you in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And they're a physical team, and they were hitting Oklahoma hard early on, but Oklahoma, weathered the storm and wore them down in the second half, and it wasn't even close, 52-16. And, I agree with you. I think Oklahoma looks like the most complete Big 12 team as of right now.
As far as throwing the football and running the football, they're the most balanced. Mayfield throws for almost 350. Samaje Perine has almost 100. Joe Mixon has almost 100.
Both of those guys did that with less than 15 carries each. I think Mixon had, 8 carries, 94? I mean, that's the team that scares me if you're TCU because – what they can do on the ground. Yeah. And as soon as you try to do something to stop those monsters at running back, Baker Mayfield picks you apart.
Not to mention TCU is atrocious on the road. You have to go up to Norman to play that game.
That's going to be a tough one.
Texas beats Kansas 59-20. Texas goes from scoring 0 the week before and gets 59 on Kansas. Again, Kansas is playing so much youth on both sides of the ball. And I think this might have been – Kansas's, I think it was their second or third highest point total on the year, 20 points, and that's saying something. But Texas moves to 4-5. They still need 2 games to get bowl eligible, but Hurd throws for 200, and Tyrone Swoops comes in throws for 97. So they almost get 300 passing yards, which is basically what they've been able to get the last 2 games combined. The guy I like a whole lot on that offense, and I was kind of surprised they didn't give him the ball more against TCU, is Foreman, Dante Foreman. He had a 93-yard touchdown run in that game, and Texas racked up a lot of yards, and obviously it's going to give them a little bit of confidence moving into this week. But another good week of Big 12 football.
Yeah, I think Foreman probably would have got more carries in the TCU game if they weren't getting beat by 136 points, but whatever it was at the time. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Foreman looks like one of the lone bright spots on that offensive side of the football for Texas going forward.
Well, let's quickly move ahead to this week and give some predictions. The biggest game on the docket's Oklahoma at Baylor. Baylor's at 6. Oklahoma's at 15. That's not correct. That's I think that's
12, right?
Yeah, 12. Anyway, this could be a scary game for Baylor. Good news is they're playing at home. Jarrett's not going to have to play in front of a hostile crowd in Norman. But again, this is a team that has shown the ability to throw the football and run the football. And Baylor has big-time question marks on defense. They're susceptible.
How does Baylor stop Oklahoma on defense? I don't see any way in the world that Mixon and Perine don't combine for 300 yards rushing. I don't see any way that doesn't happen.
Well, I don't know if they're going to rush for that many yards. I think both of them will probably be around the 70 to 80 yards. Are you talking about combined 150 or combined 300 yards?
I'm saying 150 yards each.
Each, okay. Well, I'm gonna be a little bit easier because I think that Baylor's going to sell out to stop the run. I think they'll do a good job for the most part, but I think late in the game that you're going to look at the stat line and notice that Perine probably has around 85, 90. Mixon probably has 85 or 90. I like Mixon's ability to catch the football out of the backfield too, and so that's going to be. And we all know Baylor. Oklahoma does this play where they'll line up Mixon. TCU does the same play. They'll line up the running back in the backfield next to their quarterback in shotgun formation. they'll come up back like they're blocking, and they'll run free right in the middle.
Right down the seam.
TCU did it last year, and they mauled B.J. Catalon, where it would have been a touchdown. So that's a play that I'd watch for, Mixon catching the ball over the middle and taking it to the house.
How scary does he look? He kind of had a slow start to the season.
Yeah.
But, man, that guy looks like the real deal. Obviously, he is. That's a scary 1-2 punch.
This is going to be the best defense Baylor has faced all year.
Sure.
And you, even though you're playing at home, you're still going to – Jarrett's going to see some different coverages he probably didn't see against Kansas State. Mike Stoops is going to dial up a lot of blitzes. Jarrett showed a good ability to avoid the rush against Kansas State, but I just don't think the way that I've seen the OU play the last few weeks, I'm still dumbfounded how the hell they lost to Texas, other than Texas playing with their you-know-what on fire because it was a rivalry game. But I think Oklahoma's going to go down to Waco and get this win. I think they're going to upset the Bears.
Well, we're in agreement then, because I think Oklahoma takes this one as well. I think they're going to be too physical at the point of attack for Baylor to do anything. I don't know if you've noticed this, but a certain defensive tackle for Baylor, what's that guy's name? Number 75.
I got to pay my Billings.
That's it, Billings. He's been hobbled, and he's working on a pretty bum ankle right now, and the last couple of weeks it's been noticeable. He's missed quite a few reps because of it. So that's something to watch. That's their run stopper up the middle.
Yeah.
And they cannot afford for him to get banged up early and be off the field for any extended amount of time, because this is where I see Oklahoma running away with this game. I really think they're going to be able to pound the ball on Baylor, and Baylor's not going to be able to stop it.
And what's crazy is when the year started, Oklahoma's biggest question mark was up front on the offensive line, and tell you what, man, those guys have came in and just played really, really good football. Oklahoma State and Iowa State. Remember this game a few years ago?
Brandon Weeden.
Ranked number 2. Had everything riding for the Cowboys. You had a BCS bowl in the picture. I mean, you were looking – you controlled your own destiny. Then they go up to Iowa State and get beat by Iowa State. I think Iowa State was better back then, though.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma State's going to move to 10-0. They're going to beat Iowa State. Should be another good win. And I would like to – going back to Baylor, I would like to see Baylor beat Oklahoma, so I could see Baylor and Oklahoma State play, both of them be undefeated. But as we already said, we think Baylor's going to lose and Oklahoma State's going to win. So Oklahoma State moves to 10-0.
I agree. Oklahoma State, I don't see any way with this win. I think the win over TCU is going to serve as a catalyst for that team, and I think they're going to build on that. And they're feeling it right now. You could see it in their fan base. You could see it in their players going off the field. They finally felt like they were going to get some respect now, because they came in undefeated. But even you and I had talked about we weren't that impressed with them this year.
Yeah.
But they showed that they're a legit challenger for the Big 12 title and a playoff spot. So I think they handle Iowa State.
We definitely did not give them credit where credit was due. Kansas State at Texas Tech. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders. I'm still convinced their offense is better than what they showed at West Virginia. Kansas State's got to be. Hold on just a second. Kansas State can run the football, right?
Yep.
Hubner can run the football.
Yep.
I'm still going to go with Texas Tech. I still think they'll score enough points to outlast Kansas State's run game. Hubner and Charles Jones. I think both Hubner and Charles Jones have big games running the football, but I think Texas Tech's going to score enough points on offense to win this game.
If this game was in Manhattan, I would pick Kansas State.
Yeah.
But it's in Lubbock. And as much as Tech can't stop the run, and I agree, I think Charles Jones and Hubner both run the ball. Heck, Gronkowski might get at 80 yards running on that one, but I think Tech wins it just because Kansas State will not be able to keep up with them on the offensive side of the ball. So give me Tech.
Texas at West Virginia. I'm gonna side with you this time and not go against the Mountaineers at home. Mountaineers are gonna win this game. I think both teams are obviously coming in with a lot of confidence. That was a good win for West Virginia over Texas Tech, because I don't think a lot of people were expecting that. And Texas, they did what they were supposed to do against Kansas. Everyone expects Kansas to lose, but the big thing for Texas is they went out there and showed a little bit of an identity on offense this time. They did well throwing the football. They did well running the football. Again, it's Kansas, but you gotta go somewhere in between. Maybe if they're playing a different team, it's maybe I can't even make I can't make a comparison because they didn't score anything against Iowa State. So how in the hell Texas scored 59? I don't know, but they did. But they don't do that again against West Virginia. West Virginia is going to win this one at home.
Give me West Virginia for their second conference win of the year, and Texas will fall to 3-4 in conference and 4-6 overall on the season. I don't see any way that that Texas survives West Virginia. I think the defense for West Virginia is going to give Texas fits on offense.
So if they lose this game, Texas loses this game, they drop to 4-6, then they play Texas Tech, right?
Yep.
They fall to 4. I think that would be a game they likely fall to 4-7, and then they finish off with Baylor. So you're looking at 4-8 right in the face. Kansas at TCU. TCU's going to win this. TCU's 45-point favorites. I think they cover that. I'm hoping above all hope that Kansas does not go out and have their best offensive game of the year, which very well could happen. We don't. I'm not going to put any guarantees on the defense right now. I trust Gary Patterson. I trust that the defense can get the job done. But until I see them break up about 10 passes, vertical passes in a game, then I'm not going to be convinced that they can stop a deep pass. And I know Kansas is going to attack it. I don't think Kansas has the horses in the stable like James Washington or Jakeem Grant, those guys that can get downfield in a hurry. But they're going to test them. But TCU's going to win this game. They're going to move to 9-1, and it's going to be an interesting game next week. I think if OU wins and TCU wins, we're going to see a night game in Norman. That's going to be a tough one.
Well, JC, give me Kansas to give up 65 points to TCU. Yeah, I think the Frogs are going to run away with this one, obviously. It's like you said earlier, it's a good game for TCU to have after such an emotionally draining loss. They need to be able to come out and take it out on somebody. And unfortunately for Kansas, it's going to be them. So, yeah.
It'll be the return of Kenny Perry. And oddly enough, scout team quarterback Keaton Perry for TCU is now the backup at Kansas. And he threw a touchdown pass against the Longhorns.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So you just schooled me a little bit, JC.
He threw an interception, though, too. So.
Well, that's all right. Hey, he's already done something that he probably thought he would never do.
All joking aside, for Keaton to have
awesome.
a chance to play college football, I love it for the kid because he's a good kid. The crap that he went through in high school, both of his knees, he had to have surgery on.
Heartbreaking. Yeah,
and the kid's a warrior, man. He's a fighter, and I'm so happy for him, man. I know you don't want to root for another team, especially a team that the team you cover is about to play, but man, I like Keaton, and I'm very proud of him.
So I want to say one thing. Based on our predictions that we just had, if you look at the conference standings after this week, if things go like we said, you'll have Oklahoma State at 7-0, and then you've got Baylor, Oklahoma, and TCU all at 6-1. Now you'll have Baylor at 5-1, but then TCU and Oklahoma at 6-1. That's a cluster. And that's the chaos that you're talking about.
I'm telling you, the committee is hoping that the Big 12 knock each other out.
Yep.
That's because it's going to be a lot tougher for them. I'll say this again. It'll look better for Oklahoma State to go undefeated more than it will Baylor. Just because I think if they beat Oklahoma, Oklahoma's going to drop in the rankings. It's not going to look like a good win. And if TCU loses to Oklahoma, then TCU's going to fall further than if I can't even talk about it. So I'm done.
Here's my thing. If Oklahoma beats Baylor this weekend, now Baylor drops from 6 probably to 13 or 14, and then so when Oklahoma State does beat them, they don't jump that much because they beat a team in the teens.
Yeah.
So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. Well, let's finish up this podcast. Talk a little recruiting. Kansas probably won't be a big game for visitors, but. The name to watch that's coming up, and I just did an interview with them and ran the story today, is Beaumont Westbrook safety Ennis Gaines. I watched the film. I've known about the kid for a while. TCU's been recruiting him for a long time. It was kind of one of those let's sweep them under the rug type players.
Hopefully nobody else
Hopefully
sees
no
him.
one finds out, but damned UTSA does. And I'll tell you what, UTSA –
They got some of the best talent evaluators.
They got some good evaluators. Because I'm telling you right now, those guys must be pissed at TCU because it seems like the guys that they find, TCU they're looking at them, and then, okay, we got an offer. But this is one of those situations where TCU has been looking at Ennis Gaines for a long time, several months. They've built a great relationship with him. He's going to come up for Kansas. The reason why they haven't offered him yet is because Coach Patterson wants to kind of eyeball him, see what he looks like up close, and just kind of meet with him and the family, kind of get to know the recruit a little bit more. And Ennis told me, he said, if things go well and my family likes it and everything else, I'll commit. And that'd be a good pickup.
I don't think
Frogs.
it's going out too far on a limb to say that you can all but wrap that one up. That's probably
unless his parents, because I do have people I know that talk with Ennis, and the coach pretty much knows, his coaches know that he wants to go to TCU. So everyone pretty much knows that Ennis wants to go to TCU, and he's just kind of been waiting on getting that offer. But that'll be a good pickup because he's a good-looking safety. He's about 6'2", about 190, moves all over the field pretty well. He's long. He's a long player. I think he'd be a great free safety. Kind of reminds me of a skinnier Kenny Aloka out there. He runs around pretty well. Has a good frame. I think by the time you're talking about him as a sophomore or junior, he could probably weigh about 215 pounds and just be solid muscle.
And you said you think this is a kid that'll get a bump in the rankings.
I think so because he's really come on as a senior. He's gotten Arkansas. He's gotten Utah offers. I think more teams will especially come on if he does get a TCU offer and commits. It's going to be interesting to watch. But I do feel confident in saying that if he does get an offer, he'll commit. I've just heard it from too many people. I've heard it from his lips. So if TCU offers, they'll be getting another good addition to the 2016 class.
Yeah, and you're talking about UTSA finding these guys and offering them. I mean, Derek Kindred, Denzel Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and on. And they – was it Traven Howard also?
Yeah, Traven Howard was getting recruited pretty heavily by him.
Okay. They know talent, and you have the utmost respect for that staff down there, but it's got to be just a swift kick to the to the crotch every time they find the guy they think they're going to sneak in there. But that just shows you how much talent's in the state of Texas. That some of these guys that are 2 and 3 stars that we've said time and time again, don't get caught up in the rankings.
Sure.
And that's coming from guys that work for a recruiting site and have for 10 years. Don't get caught up in that. Trust the evaluations of Gary Patterson and his staff because they know what they need to fit their scheme, and they're going to get those guys.
Absolutely. Well, Travion Williams officially decommitted. We knew it was coming. I've been asked, what happened? What did the coaches do to, did they not recruit him that much? What happened? There's got to be a reason why he just up and decommits. I don't have a reason. I haven't been given a reason other than the fact that A&M was the school Travion was also considering when he chose TCU. Even when he chose TCU, I was still getting told, hey, watch out for him because he really had a hard time choosing TCU over A&M. Then Travion went on a pro-TCU thing where he's tweeting everything TCU, and it looked like he was really comfortable. But I will say things kind of started to change when TCU started mentioning Shawo as a running back prospect. And Travion kind of, I don't know if he's acting like he didn't know, but TCU's idea in this class was to always recruit 2 running backs. And I even think I got Travion on record saying that, what it would be like to play with Kyle Porter if Kyle Porter ended up committing to TCU. But I think for the most part, Travion maybe just wanted to play at a bigger school.
I think he was feeling. I think it comes down to this. Right now, he's feeling A&M more. And guys, that are fans of a team, say TCU, they don't want to hear that. But the fact is that that's where his heart is right now. Could it change again before signing day? Who knows?
I don't know.
But the fact is that he believes that he can go there and major in engineering. And anybody on the board that's been in the engineering field knows what kind of a workload that is to try to balance sports and then an engineering degree. But more power to the kid. He's obviously got a good brain up there, and he wants to use it, and I respect him. But remember a guy that came to TCU out of Arlington Martin that wanted to do the same thing. And he was a good student, Derek Gilden.
Yeah.
He was a good student, and he had a chance to contribute right away on the football team, but he couldn't cut it in the classroom because it's a very difficult job. And I don't ever want to tell a kid, don't go for your dreams.
Yeah.
But also do your homework and get the right advice. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, Travion was also he's had a good relationship with someone selling him the idea of being the home run threat, that they're only going to take one other running back. I think you're going to see Rakeem Boyd decommit. I think Trevor Spates is eventually going to decommit. If they get Travion Williams, A&M's chances with Devwall Whaley are gone. He's not going to go to a team that has basically the same type of running back. I have asked my guys at TCU if the coaches would, go after Whaley at all. And, of course, there's always names out there that they're going to consider. But the guy that they really want right now is Kyle Porter. I mean, it's Kyle Porter or bust right now. They have been recruiting him for a long time. Looper's built a great relationship with him. I know Arkansas is a big player for Kyle as well. But it's tough to say where Kyle's leaning because he really doesn't get out there and talk to a lot of people. So, but people I've talked with feel confident that TCU has a very good chance at landing him. And another name to watch right now is Arkansas. Oddly enough, a kid out of Arkansas, T.J. Hammonds. It's a guy that TCU offered early on, and I know Hammonds has kind of been sniffing around, seeing what the interest would be like. And TCU's one of those programs that he's reached out to. So you want to say that Travion's not a big loss, but it is. He is an explosive back. He would have fit the offense perfectly.
So
you got to move on.
What does it mean today that A&M fires their offensive coordinator? Does that affect a guy like Travion at all?
I don't think so, because when you're getting recruited by the head coach,
you look past those things.
Yeah, I mean, and it's I'll tell you this much: TCU did a fantastic job of staying on them. It's
Absolutely.
Not like they dropped the ball.
Guys, TCU is not. There's not a recruit out there they're not showing enough love to. That's not. Those days of TCU recruiting are gone. They recruit at a very high level now. This is the facts, and this is just exactly what it is. You're recruiting a higher caliber kid these days. You are going against the top programs in the country for almost every prospect that you're offering.
You're not going against Colorado State.
No. And so
SMU anymore.
You're going to lose some battles, and you're going to lose. Actually, you're going to lose a lot of battles. You can only take 20 to 25 kids, right? So you're going to get yours, and you're going to lose some. But then you're also going to pick up some towards the end. It happens every year. But when you're going for the caliber of athlete that they're getting right now, just be prepared for this. Don't get caught up in questioning what did they do wrong. They didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
They're in a battle with other elite programs for elite prospects, and that's just the game it is. It's the way the game is played.
It's so easy to point fingers, though.
Right.
Because for some reason, you want an explanation, and sometimes there is one, sometimes there's not. Just like Denzel Okafor, there's no rhyme or reason. He just wants. He just wants
rather go to
school.
Texas.
There's nothing wrong with TCU from what he's always said, but.
Just rest assured,
anyway.
TCU's not getting outworked for any recruits.
No, absolutely
That's not happening.
Speaking of another offer, they did offer a kid out of Michigan last night that's committed to Michigan.
This offer surprised me.
David Reese. No, it's one of those guys that they've been on again. Kind of, don't say nothing about it, but it wasn't one of those deals where they didn't want to say anything because he's an under the radar kid. Obviously, he's a better inside linebacker in the country, but they're kind of. It's funny because. The point you just made, you're going against some of these big-time schools for recruits. You're going to lose some. You're going to win some.
But you got to take your chances.
Yeah. And David has been talking with TCU for a long time. He's trying to work out a visit date so he can come down there and see the program. And obviously TCU wants some linebackers. It's one of those deals where there can never be too many at the position.
He's a JUCO kid.
No.
Is he not a JUCO kid?
No, he's a high school.
He's from Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay, so I apologize, I said JUCO kid there, but the fact that you got a kid from Michigan that's committed to a resurgent Michigan program that's willing to even come and see your program says all you need to say about what TCU's respect level is outside of the state of Texas.
Sure.
And that's huge. Regardless of what the committee says, the rest of the nation sees it.
I'll tell you the kid right now that they probably want more than anyone on defense is the kid they offered last week, and that's Jamarcus King. He is a JUCO kid. He's the number one JUCO prospect, cornerback prospect in the country on our site. And I spoke with Jamarcus a few days ago, and he likes what he sees in TCU and said he definitely wants to get down for a visit. He's going to be at the Baylor game this weekend. He's coming down for official visit. And you hope that he sets a schedule, a visit date with TCU, because he is a December graduate. He's going to enroll early. And I asked him point blank if he was going to for sure set a visit up for TCU, and he said yes. And I said, even though, are you going to do that before you make a decision? He said, yes, I definitely want to see TCU. Man, talk about having a chance at a 6'1", 185-pound corner, and let him come to a league that there's no better league out there that will give him the opportunity to showcase his skills as a cornerback. And I'm sure that they've been selling him on that, selling him on the chance to come in and be an immediate impact player on defense. They need the big corner. They've got Deshaun Raymond on the roster. He may still be another year or two away, but if you look at when TCU's been successful on defense, they've kind of always had that field corner that's the field corner. And I'll say that. The biggest injury on this team this year is Anthony Tejada.
That crippled the secondary.
Yeah, it really did. So if you get Anthony back next year and you can line up a guy that's 6 foot, 6'1" on the other side of him, that's really when you think about the success Gary Patterson has had with his defense. There's usually a big boundary corner and there's a field corner that can cover half the field on his own. So having a guy like Jamarcus King even come in to visit your school, that would be huge for them. And, man, talk about a haul. If they got that kid, I guarantee all the coaches be running the stadium that night, just from pure excitement.
Real quick on Shawo. It's not the letter of intent that he's signing.
No, it's the
his
financial aid
packet, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what I think, and obviously you look at the Stidham case last year, there are the scenarios where that doesn't work out for the team they sign with. But I think Shawo has kind of solidified his commitment to TCU. He even tweeted that he's 100% to TCU now. I'm actually supposed to talk to him as soon as this podcast is over, and I'll have some update for you guys on the board. But yeah, I think he sees that, with Travion going on to A&M, he's not going to be going to A&M. And I don't think LSU's a player. I think it's going to be TCU. And I think even he tweeted he can't wait to be in Fort Worth. So that's an early enrollee, correct?
I was told by a pretty good source that there's no way his parents will let him go to LSU.
Okay.
So LSU's not in the picture.
But he's an early enrollee.
Whether
correct?
he's a running back or a linebacker, I mean, just getting that kid of that caliber on your roster is going to be good. And I can't remember the guy's name from UCLA that everyone keeps saying that he could be the next guy.
Miles Jack.
Yeah, Miles Jack. I mean, that'd be pretty neat for him to come in on. So I mean, I don't think Shawo's going to be a 15 to 20 carry. I mean, because they've already got a running back like that on the roster, Travoris Johnson.
Give him 7 or 8 carries a game and let him play defense.
Yeah, man, how about that? Would be pretty cool to see a 2-platoon player, man. That'd be awesome.
In the Big 12 though, in a 4-2-5, you better have your cardio up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. We've been rambling on for about an hour and 15 minutes again. Lots of stuff to talk about, and we're going to have some more updates on recruiting later this week. Hopefully on Sunday once we kind of gather in who is on campus and kind of get some feedback. But, again, be watching maybe for a commitment. We'll see. But until next time, we enjoyed it. Hope you guys did too. Jeremiah Glenn, Jeremy Clark. You guys have a good week.
Thanks, guys.